everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox Tuned In. We're here. We're back at it again, and we're going to get on into it. But before we do, as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And with that being said, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Organic herbs and botanicals, skincare and edibles, wellness for body and mind. The Brothers Apothecary. Fine teas and remedies. Ronald Records. From indie gems to classic hits, discover the heart of local music. With live shows all the time, up close and personal, and regular releases on their in-house label. Ronald Records. Supporting the community, one track at a time.
All right. Thank y'all so much for watching. Again, shout out The Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. Also, I'm sure y'all have noticed, new setup. Super excited about it, but I'm not going to waste time talking about it here on the episode. Just wanted to acknowledge it. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guest.
Hi, I'm Salyce.
Hello.
Hey.
Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I am super excited to talk about your new album, Damned If I Don't, which I guess in the realm of today, it just came out a couple days ago. Was it Friday?
Friday morning, Thursday night.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah. East Coast.
You know.
Ugh, dang it, Spotify. But yeah, no.
A little bit of both.
yeah. Well, that's exciting. Definitely looking forward to it. It's a really cool album. I appreciate you sending it in early.
Thank you.
For those of you watching, we just heard the first track called Human, which is a very powerful opening track. It just it opens up with that super nostalgic like acoustic guitar, and the way you came in, it was so chilling, so haunting. And from there, it just settles into this like very open, very emotional, very airy, vulnerable performance. And the way it ends, you're just kind of sitting there thinking like, where does this go from here? Like it's such a strong way to have opened up the album. I guess I am curious to know what made you lead it with that one.
First of all, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Honestly, that first track, Human, and the reason that it's the first track, it's kind of to represent like where my head is at now. And because for the rest of the album, you know, it's going to be a lot different. Every track is a little bit different, or a lot different. And, you know, it also is kind of like a night and day of like the first track versus the last track, Antichrist. And if you listen to the entire thing, like front to back, it's kind of like a very slow blend, but it's a very different feeling in the first half than it is in the second half. And Human is there to kind of represent that and represent the now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I dig that. It's definitely, it is a very, very diverse album for sure.
Thank you.
And we're going to cover that a lot in just a moment. But since we already checked out the first track and we already talked about it, let's go ahead and jump into the next one. This next track's called Pretty Face. All right, we're back. Now that was a powerful second track. I love the opening with like the very like real sounding drums, or at least, yeah, I don't know if they were actual real drums or not, but they sounded real. And it had a bit more of a direct feel. Like your vocals existed very heavily in that like emotional setting, and somehow it just lands perfectly in this track. And it's definitely one that I feel translates well live. That's like the big thing. Like when I was listening to it, I was just like, I can see all of this happening already. And it just kind of has this really big energy through it. And so you're clearly already pulling out the stops for us being so early on into the album. This is just laying down some serious heat. Yeah. And that's, you know, all while laying down some very serious subject matter. It's a very emotional song. And so it's a really incredible mixture of like purpose meeting presentation. But before I get into my next question, do you have anything you'd like to share about it?
Gosh, yeah, Pretty Face. That was a song made and produced by Onziat.
Mm-hmm.
They are a producer, beat maker,
Mm-hmm.
and I fell in love with the beat that they made for Pretty Face, and I knew I had to write something to it, and I just kind of waited for the right moment.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Pretty Face was kind of born out of a very complicated and whimsical kind of point of view
Mm-hmm.
of like a relationship. And yeah, I really enjoy Pretty Face too. It's one of my favorites. That's why it's one of like the first singles.
Fair. And we'll find out for sure your favorite at the end. Just putting that there now. There's a question for that.
Okay.
But we are going to knock out a super easy one right now. How'd you pick the name for the album?
Damned if I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Good question. I kind of had that phrase, damned if I do, damned if I don't,
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuck in my head for the last, I don't know, couple years. It was something that really resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started to create like a track list for the album, I finally kind of saw the correlation with, human and Antichrist and, certain meanings of some songs. I felt like Damned If I Don't was meant to be the title, meant to be something that kind of captured it all and brought it together in a way.
Gotcha. I dig that. And it's definitely, it's a powerful title, just like by presence alone, like even if the album wasn't already attached to it.
Thank you.
But I think it does paint a really good picture of it, especially just given, like I said, a lot of the subject matter, a lot of the like energy of the tracks. It feels like there's a lot of moments where you're like, if I don't do this, then it never gets done.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this next track. This next one's called Screaming. All right, we're back. There was no way I was not going to talk about this track. I mean, from the beginning, like the second I heard the birds, I knew that I was going to dig it. And it's a good change up for early on too. It's very grungy, it's very driven. And this might be a weird take, but the one thing that I really dig about your delivery, because even though the track is massive, the driving guitars, the explosive drums, just everything in between, your vocals are so dialed. They're they're like cold and cut and precise, but it felt like you were screaming. And that was just, I don't know if that was what led to the name of it or not, but it really did have this like, this bigness, this projection to it. And so, like you said, the album is very diverse. That was the first one that I think really kind of shakes the cage a lot. And it was a really welcomed experience. It was really fitting. It was fitting in a way, even though the album itself is so abstract and like total genre experience. So when I heard it, I was just like, this is the moment where I like knew the album was going to be an adventure. But before I get into my next question, do you have anything you'd like to share about it?
Gosh, thank you so much. Yeah, I love Screaming. And that is part of the reason why I called it Screaming. It was either going to be called Screaming or Inner Monologue, because that's something I refer to in the song.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like Screaming was just like, a better like punch.
Yeah.
And it just made more sense. Because also I don't say the word screaming in the song. I don't necessarily scream, but
no, but it had that.
The way that I sang, it gives that effect, and that's exactly why I called it that. Yeah, I love Screaming. And I feel like Screaming right after Pretty Face is one of like the couple of whiplashes that kind of happen in the album.
Yeah, it's a good duality for sure. For sure.
Keep you all on your toes.
Yes. And actually, I think that segues well into our next question. We're going to knock out the technical stuff real quick. Was it like recorded and mixed and mastered all in the same place, or did you like go like different places to get it all done?
Screaming, I created in my bedroom.
I mean more the whole album. Sorry.
Oh, the album. I mean, the album was made primarily in my bedroom, or at first, and then I would take it to what? Goodbye, Caleb.
Oh yeah.
What was that? DB Nation.
There we go. Okay.
DB Nation. It's a tricky
Nation.
one.
Yeah.
Shout out DB Nation. I would go to Avi and he would fix up my songs and make them, streamable and just better sounding overall. Everything I made was pretty electronic, like on Logic. And if I didn't make the beat, which there was a couple of songs, I would just take it to 11 Studios and have him record my vocals and then mix and master everything. But yeah, as far as screaming, that's one of the songs that I would start in my room and make up something, write something random. Screaming, I had Zach from 11 Studios put in some of those electric guitar moments there in the end. But
yeah, I dig that.
Yeah.
And how long did the whole album take?
Gosh, I mean, a couple of years, just because Screaming I made a couple of years ago. It's probably the oldest song on the album. And a majority of the songs that are on there I made last year or even in 2023. But yeah, it only took a couple of years, especially in the last year and a half was the most progressive and productive.
Yeah, no, I dig that. All right, well, that being said, let's go ahead. We're gonna jump ahead just a little bit for this next one. This next track is called My Love. All right, we're back. Okay. Oh my God. This track is the vibe. I have a very special spot in my heart for this particular realm of dreamy R&B-esque sound. And this track legitimately feels like it came off of the Childish Gambino album Awaken My Love, which did not realize at the time they had the names together there. So that was fun. But it's so smooth. It's impossibly smooth.
Yeah.
And it just from the beginning with the strings and then the way you come in, it has this back in the day how they would show the solo singing person in the nightclub and she'd have the piano and all, it felt like that. And it just everything was just focused in such a good, there was a spotlight in the song, if that makes sense. And
I love that.
Yeah, it just gave this really cool energy to it. And I know we got to wait till the end of the album to find out yours, but this is probably my favorite song on the album. Okay. So it's really cool. Big fan. As usual, before I get into my question here, do you have anything you'd like to share about it?
Gosh, I do. I would love to shout out who made the beat. I fell in love with this beat. I found it with a couple of friends of mine. We use YouTube sometimes to find songs and inspiration. But when it came to this song, I was working on it for a good minute. This was made, I want to say 2023, maybe 24, maybe last year. But yeah, I love this song. The beat is by Yogic Beats. They're I think primarily they have a website with other beats, but they use YouTube and yeah, Yogic Beats.
I dig that.
Love it.
And oh my God, that actually segues really well into this next question. How did you go about overall beat selection?
They kind of came to me. I really try not to like rely on using other people's beats. I really try to make my own production wise. But when I can't find inspiration, it depends. Like they just kind of come to me. I usually don't use like the first one that you find. It takes a little while. I use like Caliuchis inspiration and a lot of that, a lot of Amy Winehouse inspiration. Yeah, I mean it really depends. Depends on the mood. Depends on what I'm gonna write about.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to like the beats you made yourself, like what kind of like space did you have to put yourself in to like make them and then like decide this is going to go on the album?
Good question, because I took kind of like a hiatus off of like producing and making stuff. So it took a minute to like snap back into it.
Yeah.
And
remind me, you went to school for music, correct? Yeah.
Yeah. And I did it a little bit in college, but after a while I kind of fell off and I kind of lost my way. I wasn't sure if I was even good at making beats, and, you know, listening back at my stuff, I was always so hard on myself. But I really just kind of had to lock in and just not care. I also really relied a lot on just making a good format to take to DB Nation or 11 Studios or Purple Matter even. They added and contributed a lot to some of my songs. But, you know, for that matter, it really depends also.
No, I gotcha. I know it's a pretty open-ended question,
You know.
so thank you for entertaining that one. But now let's go ahead. We're going to jump into this next track. This is called Can't Sleep, featuring Santavo.
Giving you my love is what motivates me. Now it's hard to move my feet. 10 toes out and stopping me. Don't wanna go, don't wanna leave. I can't stop, and that's why I can't sleep. I can't sleep tonight. Got too much on my mind.
All right, we're back. This one was a little bit of a change up, hitting us up with some bars, first of all. And the beat felt real throwback. Like it definitely, it had all of these kind of just these classic elements to it. And while the track itself is a bit of a shift up in sound, it sets up the second half of the album really well. I think it's the guiding light of what's going to happen from there. And it happens at just the right point. And also, I mean, you know, shout out Santavo, the great feature. His voice is a super strong contrast to yours, but in the most complimentary way. And it's cool because I know y'all roll in the same circles and such, so it wasn't a surprising feature, but it is the only feature on the album. And that I thought was a really powerful addition because, you know, like sometimes people are like, it's all me. Sometimes it's everybody. But one song with one feature, I think that is like, that is a tasteful decision because it's clearly intentional.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, for being the only feature on the album, great feature to have. I think it sounded really good. It worked really well.
Yay. Thank you so much.
And usual fashion, do you have anything you'd like to share with it?
You know, Can't Sleep, I made the beat and, you know, I don't remember exactly what I had intended for, you know, the feeling and everything, but it turned out to be just a really fun, kind of wholesome sounding beat. I know that me and Tavo were making music before, and I was like, God, I need to make us a beat. Because, you know, I work with a lot of friends, and I've worked with, you know, a lot of local artists, but I rarely ever take the time to actually produce and like compose and make a beat for a collaboration. So I felt like with Tavo, it was like, I got to do that. I got to do it, and I got to see how it turns out, and I really loved it. And thank you. I think it also does kind of help introduce the rest of the album.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. And now, was there, when you were putting the album together, and I know it kind of happened over the span of some time, but like, was there a point in time where you like felt like you had a direction in mind or like a vision of what you wanted the album to look like?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted Human to be first and Antichrist to be last.
Okay.
That was, at that point, I had those songs ready, and I was like, that has to, they're either right before or after each other, or they're first and last.
Mm-hmm.
And I did first and last, and then I was like, I need to fill in the blanks. Like, how do I transition Human all the way to Antichrist? Like, what is going to fill in the blanks? So as far as making a track list, that's kind of how it went down.
I gotcha. Well, like I said, while it is a very broad style album, I feel like you definitely nailed it as far as like the arrangement and such goes. But let's go ahead and get on into this next one. This is called A Message to You. All right, we're back. And this is yet again another very magical track.
Thank you.
And I knew it was going to be a hit again because of the birds. I don't know what it is. Like, I think the alternative album name could have been The Aviary and it would have worked. Mm-hmm. But this track had a very different energy too. It was darker, but in like a blue way, if that makes sense, which I found out is very Rick Rubin to describe things in colors. Didn't know that, but Rick, I get it now. It was very Weekend-esque too. Oh, like there was those elements in that. That's like with like kind of the darker synth tones and like the kind of the richness of it. And honestly, if that had been the last track, that would have been like, I would have been like, oh shit, okay. And then the interlude after that was literally called The End, which I thought was kind of an interesting coincidence. Now, not to say that everything that came after it wasn't great, but like this was one of those moments where like I heard it and I was just like, damn, this is cool. This is cool. And I'm sad I actually wasn't able to fit the interlude into talking about in this episode, but it will be the outro song. So it makes it on here either way. But before I go any further, usual, do you have anything you'd like to share about it?
So A Message to You was made by Bokoven Beats.
Mm-hmm.
Bokoven. Mm-hmm. And I actually, my friend found the beat. Me and Tavo were actually going to make a song off of it, but I kind of took over. I was like, you know what? It just feels right to just sing the entire time. And sometimes it happens. And thankfully, he was cool about it. And I was like, this is going to be the song. This is going to be my song, actually. But yeah, I love the beat. And I also fell in love with the birds part. I felt like it was really a good connection.
It's a good throughway for the album. I got to tell you, like, there are little things like that, especially when they can jump up kind of throughout because they don't have to live on like one intended purpose. Yeah. That really, it's a good way to tie things together without like overloading like the need for continuity. And again, it's a good indicator that it's going to be a rad track. So, I mean, granted, you should have started every track with birds if that's the case, but I thought it was a fun throughway. I guess now that we're getting kind of closer to the end, I'll ask kind of the bigger question. What made you decide to do an album?
God, this kind of ties into like the title. I really was damned if I didn't. I really, that's honestly the reason why it's called that is because I gotta get this shit out. I gotta I've been performing locally in Portland and Vancouver for a little while. And I started doing some shows out in Texas, and I'm trying to plan on doing more shows out in the world, Atlanta, Houston. And I need to make a name for myself, not only there, but out in the music world too. Like I'm damned if I don't share this music and let them know like this is who I am and this is what you're looking for. It's over here. Like this community, this safe space almost, this relatability, this concept of an album. It's kind of meant to, you know, reflect like the good and the bad. And most importantly, that you got to put it out there. You got to share who you are. So.
Oh yeah, I dig that.
Thanks.
I guess I'm curious now. This is a more for me question than anything else. You said that you had taken a bit of a break from music. Was the album the like coming out of your break? Like, was that like where you were like, this is pulling me back?
Yeah, for sure. Because before any of this, when I was, you know, just starting out in like 2023, maybe 2022, the couple years before that, there was nothing. No music, no writing, no studio, not even going to like concerts or anything. And so, yes, this album and this culmination of music, it's like the rawest form of like, I'm coming back, and this is me coming into my own and coming of age.
Gotcha. All right. Well, like I said, I was just curious. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and we're going to get into this next one. Now, normally this is the point where I would jump to the second to last track, but we're going to jump to the third from the last track because I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the title track, Damned If I Don't.
If you really roll and show up, I'm not nice and trying to blow up. It's been real, my ride just pulled up. Salyce, it's by me, she unique. I'm a boss, you're a bird, Tweety B. They love to hear me and see me in the Salyce. I just started.
All right, we're back. Now that track was a very different beast. I mean, first of all, those like Middle Eastern plucky strings really set a tone for it. That enormous bass. That just the low end on it is huge. And you are just right there, right front and center, right from the start. All your lines are very precise, very tactical. The whole track is very, very chilly, especially like when the beat drops out and it's just like, you're just there for the moment. I mean, granted, it comes back like 10 times harder, but like there was just something about that had some grit, had some teeth to it in a really interesting way. And before I go into the next part, because usually, I like to ask like your thoughts on it as well, your experience. But I am curious to know also why this became the title track.
Kind of separate reasons on why I made it, but the reason I made it, this was also one of those songs that like would start in my bedroom, and I would just kind of like be playing around with beats. And, I didn't really have like any idea where I was going with it. I was just trying to make somewhere where I could just like talk shit and like do it in the most organic way possible because
I love organic shit talking. There's something there.
I was really just like, I'm doing this shit and I'm doing it all on my own. And, with the help of DB Nation, I got the beat and the bass to sound like that, to bring you in like that, for the vocals to bring you in like that. It's very much DB Nation's work. But the reason I called it Damned If I Don't is kind of, it's kind of like a half-assed, like, I didn't really have a name for it in the first place. And I was like, it's already the name of the album. The song needs a name, and it kind of suits it the most.
Yeah.
I guess it was meant to be like, I wasn't meant to really find the name until, I had to name it something.
Gotcha. Okay. So you already had the name of the album.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. It was kind of floating around there. And, for the longest time I was calling it Infinity, which I don't know. It didn't really make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Damned If I Don't definitely fits it a lot better.
I like that one better.
Yeah.
I like that one better. And when I'm live, performing it live, I can even add in like the Damned If I Don't like chant or like sing that at some point, near the end maybe, but it's kind of one of those songs. It's like, just call it that.
I think that is all right, and that's not technically the question, so that we still got one for you here.
Okay.
But we've only got one track left, so I'm gonna hit you with the question I mentioned earlier.
Cool.
What is your favorite track off the album?
My favorite track, We didn't talk about it.
Oh no.
But it's Fantasy.
Mm.
It's the second more like rock kind of sounding song. I made that beat as well as I made Screaming, but I made Fantasy like last year. And it was like super heavily based off of the like rock and hard metal album from Queen of the Damned.
Okay.
Which there's a little bit of ties.
Yeah. There's a lot of throughways on this album.
There's a lot going on. But with Fantasy, I've always loved that sound, and that's like the direction I want to go for my next projects. I want to go more dark rock, alternative, and yeah, I just really, that's my favorite one. And the meaning, it's so like it's super vulnerable and raw and intense, and I love it. Yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry we didn't get to talk about it now.
Oh, it's okay.
We'll have to go back in time. Jimmy, edit this and no, I'm kidding. All right. But with that being said, we've got one last track to go.
Okay.
Final track on the album. Would you like to introduce it?
The final track on the album, Antichrist.
You're not ready, you're not ready. Turn the tables when you're least expecting. You're not ready, you're not ready. I'm the Antichrist, shit is about to...
All right, we're back. That was a very strong ending. Like the track itself was a bit of a journey too. Like it builds itself up. It's a very strong track. It's very powerful. It's very dark. It oozes this confidence and this rawness, and you like your words aren't like drenched in effects. You're not hiding behind metaphors. You're putting it all right there, and the track kind of follows suit in that presentation. So I mean, as far as like a way to close things out, I think that was a really strong ending for sure.
Thank you.
And, obviously, as you've mentioned before, there's a big duality between it and the very beginning of the album. So before I wrap up with my final thoughts, do you have anything you'd like to share about it?
Yeah, Antichrist I made in my bedroom, like so many, and I brought to DB Nation primarily. Antichrist was always there. It was one of the first songs that I performed when I started to perform locally under Salyce. So it holds like a nice, place in my heart because it reminds me of that confident, young 22-year-old that was like, fuck it, I'm just going to go and I'm going to perform. I'm going to go to the Flow Show, or I'm going to go to the Give Back.
Shout out the Flow Show.
And, I'm going to go and I'm going to perform, and I'm going to just push it. And I'm going to do this song, Antichrist, and they're going to know who I am, essentially. So I always love her for that. I'll always love Antichrist for being that strong girl, the Antichrist in comparison to my human form, if you will.
Yes. Hell yeah, I dig that.
Thanks.
I dig that. Well, like I said, super cool ending to the album for sure.
Thank you.
And like as a whole, so I guess I'll get into my final thoughts now. This was a tough one because there was just so much going into it. Like every track is really well done. I mean, it's got a great track count. Those are words. Awesome arrangement. And most importantly, it does have a variety. I think you played to all of your strengths for sure, but you also went outside the lines. You really kind of like delved into all of these other places, and you weren't afraid to like you didn't like make one kind of lead into the other next one into the next one. You were just like, this is what's happening next. Yeah. And I think not only is that appreciated in today's climate, but it's also kind of necessary. Like, I think that it's crazy to me how much people just leave on the cutting room floor nowadays because they're just like, oh, well, it doesn't fit my vibe. It doesn't fit my brand. Yeah. Music is so expansive, and you really took advantage of that with this album. Yeah. And I mean, just for the sake of the episode, I couldn't talk about every track, but I think it's a phenomenal album. I think you put a lot of heart and soul into it, and it's going to be one of those ones that you're going to look back on in a few years, and it's going to open up a lot of doors for you. So I'm really excited to see what everybody thinks now that it is out and they can check it out as well. But I just want to say thank you for sharing it with us and coming on and sharing your experience about the album as a whole.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for talking with me about it, for listening and applying yourself to the album and to the themes. I really appreciate you having me.
Yeah, definitely.
About it.
Definitely. Now, with that being said, I do have one question to go, but let's go ahead and wrap up things real quick. First, what can we look forward to between, let's say now and August? What do you got cooking?
Now in August, probably gonna push "Damned If I Don't" as the next single. I have an album coming out with Tavo, like a whole album.
12
exciting. Tracks of me and him.
Hell yeah.
Just back to back to back. So that's going to be coming sometime in the summer, I believe. I'm going to be traveling for music too. So I'll be going to Houston again soon, next month. I'm probably going to hit Atlanta in July. And
good time to go.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Hell yeah. Definitely looking forward to all that. For this next one, then go and look straight at the camera. Just tell everybody how they can find you.
So I'm Salyce. Thank you so much for watching. You can find me anywhere at Salyce or Salyce Music. That's SALYCE. Thank you.
Hell yeah. And then any other plugs, any other shout outs, anybody else you want to put on while you're on here?
Thanks, Mom. Love you, Mom.
Shout out to Mom one time. All right. Now, with that being said, like I said, I've got one last question to go. But before we do, I'm going to steal the camera for just a second.
Okay.
As always, y'all, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know what they are, but you do, and I trust you. And one more shout out to the Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, the final question. And this, very similar to the final question for the regular interviews, but we're going to kind of keep it in the theme here. Was there an album that inspired you during the making of your album?
Yes, pretty much the Queen of the Damned.
Gotcha. Okay.
Album and movie and that just whole vibe. That was like a big part of it for sure.
Gotcha. I could definitely see that for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that being said, then we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And this has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. I'm Jimmy.
I'm Salyce.
And we're signing off. Later, y'all.